Right, boys. This article says breaking. Andrew Genick has lost his hat, stolen by a stranger, revealing his clapped bald hairline and exposing him as a fraud maxer. The hair was a lie, and he was wearing a wig. And so we're going to be hearing a boomer take on looks maxing and how it's totally unnecessary in today's day and age by a guy who last dated more than 10 years ago.
There are so many other factors outside of just looking pretty that get you women. I mean, don't take my word for it. I'm obviously the #1 YouTube looks maxer, causing cortisol spikes wherever I go because of my generationally profound aura, or whatever the lingo is, right? I don't know any of the lingo. But no, I'm 46. I'm married for 10 years. I've got 4 kids, right? So none of this is my problem or something I would ever think about for a second. But also, I never thought about that when I was young, right? When I was young, I was thinking about physically doing things, not treating myself like a...
Okay, first of all, he has to think about physically doing things. He cannot approach dating from a looks maxing perspective. Because look at this, right here. This is what he has to work with. He's got the general British white guy look, which if you guys have been to Britain before it was invaded by the Somalians, they were a rough and rugged bunch to begin with. So in essence, he has to go out and he has to work with his hands and make money and be charismatic and do all of the extra stuff that women say they want above and beyond looks in order to bag a wife and have 4 kids, 2 of which aren't even his.
Woman, because this whole subculture is really kind of adopting the women's framing on themselves and applying it to men, as if men see each other through the lens of men, I guess.
Okay, here he's right. So what he's trying to say is that men have become feminized, which is absolutely true in today's society. And because of that, they are trying to make themselves pretty for women. But if we look at how culture has progressed over the last 10 years, where women have become more masculinized than ever, are we actually surprised about any of this?
Women tend to actually like guys who are competent, right? They like guys who are capable of doing things.
True.
And the whole looks maxing subculture is essentially putting on the mask of competence, virtue, strength, vitality. And that's why I think...
Okay, it's not a mask, okay? Looking good is not a mask if you're a guy. And this has gone back over 2,000 years, almost 2,500 years, back to the times of Socrates, when he said something along the lines of it's a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and the strength of which his body is capable of. Socrates said that. So if he's going to bag on looks maxing, he's bagging on one of the smartest, most written about people of all time.
This generational aura loss was so bad. I mean, my hair is my own hair. I'm lucky enough to still have my hair. Honestly, actually, not like even joking. At my age, my dad was bald as anything. So very lucky I got my hair from
He's got the rest of this to work with. That's the problem. I mean, yeah, buddy, you've got your hair, but that's about all you've got going for you aside from a YouTube channel and deep pockets. You can tell if he lost a bit of weight, maybe got on these bags underneath his eyes, maybe 10, 15 years ago, he might have had it going on. He's got a good beard trim right here, the gray coming in. That's a good look for an older guy, especially if you're going after younger girls.
Mum's bloodline. My granddad on my mum's side had a good head of hair when he died. But it really does...
top tier genetics, right?
No, this sort of stuff is interesting because in my experience, most women have been interested in charisma and competence. And what this looks maxing stuff is essentially a kind of way of compensating for not having charisma or competence.
He's so close. All right. One of my best friends is not anything to look at. One of the most charismatic guys that I know. but he's developed that organically throughout his entire life. And one of the things that getting fit actually gives you is subconsciously you are giving yourself permission to be outgoing, to be charismatic. So you're not faking it. This is a fake it till you make it kind of scenario. And once you do make it, it becomes your life's reality. And I know this is a guy who is not really anything to look at 12, but by the time I was 14, had all the girls chasing me. And that is when I developed true confidence.
And so the whole thing looks kind of put on. It's a whole fiction of I have the visage of someone who has been living a certain kind of life without living that certain kind of life.
He is speaking to something here because our physical traits do correlate with the ability to do things in real life, right? Hunting, providing, provisioning, that sort of thing. My body doesn't come from working out in the gym. My body comes because I work a hard maintenance job for the government in which I am capable of working with my hands to create and fix things that we actually need as a society. Most guys, when they're young, they don't have that level of competence, though. And in order to gain that level of competence, or at least look like they have that competence, they need to go to the gym for years on end and develop the discipline that will allow them to study something that will inevitably end with them gaining competence in some area.
And so when I mean, we'll play this just when Androgenic here gets his hair stolen. That's rough, man.
Okay, let's go back. His hairline is pretty bad. I see why he wears a hat.
Androgenic here gets his
Oh, look at that hairline. And that comes from overly using testosterone, androgenic products in your youth. Of course, you're going to lose your hair. DHT is a real thing, especially if you don't know very much about post-cycle therapy and things that can kind of mitigate that sort of hairline response that this kid over here has. But, does he have the body? Can he get laid with his hat on? Sure. Do I think he has competence in any specific area? No, but at that age, you don't really need it. At his age in college, girls aren't looking for competence in anything except for being socially competent, especially if you have a kick-in social media account. That's all they really care about.
hair stolen. Oh, fucking hell. That's rough, man. That's rough. I see. Now I didn't know anything about this. Right?
Oh, look, he rewinds.
I mean, oof.
Yeah, that hairline is pretty.
Oregon. I mean, this guy looks like he's at a footy match, right? Come on, you Reds! He's not. He's gone from looking like a young Greek statue to a football yob.
Hold on,
and it's just
hold
very,
on. His
very
hair
interesting.
in the back is fake too. Hold on, wait, look, because he's got a shaved head. When he's wearing a hat, there's hair there. And he is wearing a wig. Oh my god!
To
wow,
a football yob. And it's just very, very interesting how that works.
Wow, look, it's all spotty.
But the whole thing
that could be hat
was
hair,
a performance. Like his entire demeanor has changed. And like, look at this. Look at the state, the way he's standing, like very confidently. But it's all a front. It's all a fake. And suddenly, oh no, my dorsal spiked. And now
he says it's all a fake. I don't think this is all a fake. I think this kid that we're watching right here, Androgenic, has real big problems with his own physicality and who he believes he really is. And this comes down to what narcissistic personality is at its core, which is a feeling of lack inside, which is why you need to make up for it in other ways. But the core part of NPD, and I know because I was diagnosed with it, comes from you not believing yourself to be worthy.
now he is himself just instantly diminished. It's like, okay, well, that's only possible if you are a giant fake. And it was like when Clavicular was doing the was it push-ups or like barbell raises or whatever it was, and he couldn't lift a certain weight, and everyone was like, oh right, okay. It's like, well, this is all women wearing.
And there's a difference between strength and functional strength and just looking like you lift. Any one of you blasts testosterone, enanthate, cypionate, or tren any of the classic steroids, right? You're going to look like you lift. Whether or not you actually can lift anything, that comes down to training your actual muscles.
Makeup, right? Because, so just to be clear, right, and this is what I mean by it's the attitude of women applied to men. And then you've got the kind of hyper competitiveness of young men applied to what is essentially women's work. So I'm not trying to be insulting. I honestly think
Like he'll call it women's work, be how like having a social media presence because of how you look. But and here's where he's wrong, is that you having that social media following and making even a decent, you don't even need to make any money at it. If you have 100,000 followers as a guy, it's going to net you so much female attention. And at this point in their careers, most of these young guys that are anywhere between 18 to maybe 24, that's all they really care about. It's not about making money, it's about making pussy. And that's because Kitty, like, what is the purpose of money to young men? It is to buy the things in order to attract the kitty in the first place anyway. And if you could just skip that whole middleman, well, more power to you. In by all means, like, go for it, guys. If I was young, that's exactly what I would be doing, and that's because I have chased the wrong things my entire life. But now that I'm older, I can tell you that that's ultimately going to leave you emotionally bereft and totally deflated spiritually.
this is what's happening, right? So women are very focused on the way they look.
True.
Because men are
Very
attracted to looks. Now,
Yeah,
women are, of
everybody
course,
is.
everyone's attracted to looks to a certain degree, right? You know, someone who is good looking will always be a preferable thing, a preferable person, if all other things are equal to someone who is ugly. So if you're there, you've got two school janitors walking past you. One just happens to be super good looking, like Adrian with his hair, and one happens to look like Adrian without his hair. Well, you know which one a woman's going to choose, right?
And here's the thing he's not saying, because he doesn't have this experience. He doesn't have the experience of being good looking and going out. Looks get your foot in the door, but you can always talk yourself out of box. The less you say, in fact, the better.
If she's inclined to choose either. So it's not that looks don't matter, and looks matter to women as well to a degree, but not to the degree that they matter to men. Looks
No, that's not true. He's wrong. That's changed.
really matter to men. And actually,
Like, we are talking about women that their entire life is optics. They live their entire life on Instagram and Snapchat, and they mainly want a guy that's going to look good next to them on Instagram and Snapchat. And so when we talk about women having less of an eye for the male aesthetic than men have for the female aesthetic, he's completely incorrect about that, Joy. Because men, yeah, we care about the girl that we are with. We want her to be beautiful. We want other men to be jealous of her. But women care far more about that, because they play the social game to an extent that far exceeds the understanding of men.
actions matter a lot to women. Charisma actually really matters a lot to women. I've seen
Charisma matters a lot to women. He is absolutely correct about that. Make no mistake. Charisma is an aphrodisiac to women, and that's because women fall in love with what they hear.
really normal looking guys in my time get really attractive women because they make them feel good.
Me too.
They make
Seen
them
that plenty of
feel
times.
like they are the center of the universe.
Absolutely.
They make them feel excited. They don't know what they're going to do next. Things are happening.
So what we've got here is we have a guy that is, I think he's taking, there's two spectra here, right? There's the physical, and then there is the non-physical domains and of attraction. And he's massively overplaying what the non-physical means to women and underplaying what the physical actually does mean, when in fact they both mean quite a deal to the modern woman.
And I've seen women who go for guys who are big and powerful because they look like they are physically capable of doing things. I've
Let me tell you a secret. When I'm in bed with my girl, at like before, in, during, and after, we're going at it. The things she said to me, like, she does say things like, "Oh, I like your rough hands. I like that you can do things." But the main thing she says and does is she rubs my belly and she says, "I love your abs. I like this, this, and this." And she'll touch my body. And she says, "I think you're so hot." That's what she thinks about. And she tells me it makes her, I don't even know how to word this for YouTube. It makes her come to an end very quickly and very hard.
Seen women go for guys who are funny just because they make them laugh and they like spending time around them. Again, making them
Yeah, but you can't tell jokes like that'll get a woman to O. It's just not going to happen.
feel good in some way. Either they feel protected, they feel curious about what's going to happen next, or they're just entertained by being in his presence. Lots of things make women want to be with you. This isn't one of them, actually.
This isn't one of them. Wow. He says physical looks do not matter at all to women. This is a huge problem. And this is because he's older. What is he, Gen X? He's got to be he said he's been married for 10 years, has 4 kids. And I don't know how many of you guys have seen the studies that say that your testosterone drops like a rock. First of all, when you get into a committed relationship, and then once you live with children in the house. And there are biological reasons for that. But he is completely downplaying the fact that women are into physicality, and that's because he's never had the physicality in the first place anyway. So I'm just going to leave this there, and we're going to call that as this guy's just too old to understand the status quo and how women operate today. And with that, I will see you guys on the next one.